Good morning and welcome to Bridges at Lakeview Health, our educational series developed to help our professional partners across the nation connect to addiction and recovery education subjects. We want to thank you all for joining us. Today, our special guest will be presenting on equine-assisted learning for the recovery and treatment of addiction. Lakeview Health is an adults-only addiction treatment facility located in Jacksonville, Florida. Since 2001, we've been leading the way in how addiction is perceived, treated, and how recovery is managed. We are a passionate team of difference makers whose mission is to empower profound recovery through exceptional, dynamic, evidence-based care for individuals and their families. Our commitment to our patients does not end at discharge, but is continued through our aftercare and alumni support. Before we get started, I wanted to share a few housekeeping items. You can submit questions throughout the presentation via the Q&A section to the right of your screen. And at the end of the presentation, the presenter will answer any questions entered. The chat box is for conversations among participants. You are muted throughout this presentation and can communicate via the chat. Please do not ask questions for the presenter via the chat box. Within 24 hours following the event, we will email participants the evaluation and the event recording. Our presenter today is Pamela Dent, Equine Specialist and Executive Director of Round Pen Ranch. Pamela has spent many years training in various equine disciplines. She has over 30 years of experience with horses, horse behaviors, animal husbandry, herdsmanship, and natural horsemanship. She has attended clinics from the most renowned horse trainers and educators in the world, including Allegra Holm, Bill Woods, Pat Pirelli, John Lyons, Clinton Anderson, and Richie Wingfield. She has also attended week-long intensives at Crystal Peaks Youth Ranch and received training on running an established therapeutic ranch. She is passionate about personal growth and education. Her work with special needs kids, at-risk youth, and adults seeking skill building for life is her true calling. Thank you, and now over to Pam.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me today on this discussion on equine-assisted learning. As the intro said, my name is Pam Dent. I do run a local nonprofit here in Jacksonville that offers equine-assisted learning and therapies. Today, I hope to explain a little bit of what that looks like, especially the model that I use. And if you have any questions at the end, I'd love to clarify. I am coming from the equine specialist point of view, but I do work on a team with a mental health specialist when I work with groups. So let's get started. What is equine-assisted learning or animal-assisted therapy? You will hear me go kind of back and forth with these words. Sometimes it's learning, sometimes it's therapy, and that's basically based on who the participants are and the program that they are setting up with the therapist. If I do a demo with mental health specialists, they're coming for equine-assisted learning. I'm showing them how a session may run, and it's not necessarily therapeutic in nature, but it's equine-assisted learning because the horses are there and we are actually running through a session. And I will have a mental health specialist with me at the time. So if you hear me use those words interchangeably, it's because it depends on the day. So I'm going to start this slide from the bottom up, actually, hoping to clarify what this looks like and a couple things. So basically, it is always group work. The reason it's always group work is because I am there and my mental health specialist is there. Even if one participant shows up, that is a group. And we also have the horses are considered a part of the team members. So we have horses and we have 2 people and all the participants. Also, at my place, my program is 100% groundwork. This is not mounted therapy. I believe, in the program that I use believes that the moment you mount a horse, you have changed your relationship with horse, and that horse is not necessarily free to choose. I am a rider. I believe in the magical things that happen when you ride a horse, but this is not that kind of work. This is 100% on the ground with a loose herd, loose by they're not encumbered by a halter. And this kind of work, having the herd, leads to behaviors that only exist in a herd as if they were in the wild, and they're able to react freely and choose freely, which leads to introspection for the people. Why is this horse reacting to me in this way? And their experiences, what they're going to experience is live. They have real-time feedback from these horses, and we're able to work as a team to get through what they might be thinking or feeling. And using horses in a herd, the herd will actually have very congruent behaviors based on what the team and the participants bring in. If they walk into the arena and they're very excited and they're high energy, you're going to have very excited, high energy horses. And that is feedback right away. Why are the horses running around? Well, what is your body language saying? Why are the horses calm and taking a nap? Well, what are you feeling right now? And horses are really good at that. They're super honest. They're non-judgmental. So they're able to offer that non-judgmental support, comfort, but even a challenge. And the reason we're able to say they're non-judgmental is basically their frontal lobe is very small compared to a human frontal lobe. They actually don't have the ability to preconceive things. They don't plan things. They do remember things and they can be conditioned, but they're not going to take the time to judge you unless they're thinking about their environment as it is right now, especially with the participants entering into their area and interacting with them. Let's talk a little bit about the program. So this program, it is experiential learning. Like I said, they're happening with the animals at that moment, and whatever they're experiencing is valuable to them at that point. We talk about that even before. We say, listen, we don't necessarily have a plan for you today, but we want you to experience what you need, and we want to meet your needs, and as a group and as individuals. It is a super active style program that we provide a basis to give clients real experience and problem solving skills. Sometimes it looks like we're setting them up to fail even, and that's okay, because what we're asking them to do is have a goal and reach that goal and decide whether or not it's successful or not. I'll give an example of that a little bit later in the talk. We deal with a lot of relationship skill buildings, self-awareness, verbal, nonverbal communication. We're dealing with creatures that are almost 99% nonverbal, and that gives an opportunity for people to think about, well, what is my nonverbal skills and how do I approach this horse, not knowing anything about it? How do I approach people? Do I have a similar reaction that maybe this horse has and to other people or a crowd? So this can lead to more effective use of treatment and a lasting understanding of recovery and relapse prevention skills upon leaving treatment. Because of substance abuse and addiction and positive life experience are highly influenced by the client's overall health and their feeling of distress and stress and anxiety, we're able to have people come in, and even in one session, they might be feeling overwhelmed. They show up and they're super stressed, they're anxious. A lot of them can be just anxious because they don't exactly know what equine therapy is and what it's going to look like, and they want to do well, but they have no idea what they're supposed to be doing. And we have to deal with that in session, and the horses are able to give them immediate feedback on, well, this is how I feel about you coming into this space. This is how I feel about your interaction with me. And this always builds on relationship skills. And we're able to ask the participants, well, where can you take that, what you've just learned? How can you use this in your recovery journey? And we're able to talk about that. So here is the model. So I was trained through a group called EGALA, stands for Equine Assisted Growth and Learning Association. They have a very specific model for what group looks like. And basically, you can't not do any of these three things. So you 100% have to have a herd. You can't use just one horse. It needs to be more than one horse, preferably more than two horses, because if one gets separated from the other, that could cause a different dynamic where when you have a herd, they're going to use herd behaviors that you only see in a herd. And those behaviors are what we're looking for to help mirror those relationship skills that we were talking about, whether it be leadership, communication skills. There has to be a herd, and there has to be a team. You need an ES and a mental health specialist. So the mental health specialist is there for the people, and the ES is there for the horses. And by that, what I'm saying is my goal as the ES, I am to watch the horse behavior and focus mostly on that. And the mental health specialist is to focus on the human behavior. And we work very closely as a team, usually away from the people, far enough that we're able to kind of talk and communicate while it's happening. We aren't always on top of them. Sometimes they're across a 2-acre field with the horses, and we're able to say, all right, this is where this is going. And where do we want to head next with the session? And you need willing participants and slightly not so willing participants. And the reason I say that is because what's very important is that you have a specific area that you're using. It could be 2 acres, it could be a round pen, it could be a small stall, but you need to define, this is where we're doing session today, and this is who we're working with these horses. Because even someone who's like, well, I'm just going to watch, the moment they enter the arena or that space, the horses know they're there, and they're a part of group, 100%. And their presence affects the herd. Therefore, even if they just come to watch, which happens a lot, and they almost 100% join in, that's still within the space that is designated. So that is the model. And now let's talk about what we're looking for. So we have an acronym called SPUDS. Cute little potato. He actually looks like he has eyes. And this is a good reminder that what we're actually looking for is visual. It's not so important what the participants are saying out loud or saying to each other as much as what we can see. When I say we, I'm talking about the therapeutic team, the ES and myself, or I'm sorry, the ES and the mental health specialist. And this is the acronym is SPUDS. I'm going to kind of explain SPUDS and what clean language is and how working with horses and looking for the SPUDS is how this works. So first thing we look for is shifts. When I start a session, I will tell the group, this is the area we're working with. These are the horses we're working with. I'd like you to go introduce yourself, make some observations. Now, they walk off. A lot of times we'll even step away maybe 10 feet or put our backs to the fence and watch. And I'm looking for shifts. The people walk towards the horses and they interact. And this is where they become a group. And the shift would be if all the horses walked away. That'd be a shift. Now, I'm not going to immediately run in and change things up. I just notice the shift. I take note of it. I will also wait until I see the people disengage from the horses. And this could be 10 minutes, it could be 45 minutes. If they're as a group and they're engaged, this is their session. So they may spend 45 minutes, a half an hour, just touching them, talking to the horses, forming a relationship, forming some trust. And then when I see a shift, and usually the shift comes from movement of horses, all the horses walk away or all the people walk away, or we get a majority of the people disengage with the horses. That's a good a time for us to come in as a team and say, okay, then we check in. We check in and we say, so I noticed these 3 horses moved from here to here. What happened? Or we might just say, what was that like for you introducing yourself? And almost immediately, this is where the participants will make judgment calls on the horses. They start making observations about their personality, and we point out patterns. Now, patterns happen all throughout session, but they also can happen pretty right away. For instance, one horse put its teeth on a participant's leg, and then they'll say, oh, I'll ask, well, what happened? Well, that horse hates me. All right, well, once the participant uses that word hate, then I can use it, but I'm not going to say that. I'm not even going to say the horse bit you. I'm going to say the horse put its teeth on you, because within that same session, I will then point out, well, that same horse that hates you and put its teeth on you, I noticed that it put its teeth on that tree, it put its teeth on that fence, put its teeth on my water bottle, and that other horse. And then they'll go, well, that is interesting. Well, what is about that? Well, maybe that horse, that's the way it interacts. I mean, it's the way that it interacts with the world. And then that person will have a little bit of introspection and will ask, well, do you think this horse still hates you? Even though I've noticed this is 2 acres of land and that same horse is still standing next to you, and it's free. It can walk around and it's choosing to stand next to you and interact with you. And then that feeling that they had of relationship that they had has now changed. They're able to look at it in a different way. So that's an example of that uniqueness. That usually comes from me knowing the horses. I'm able to say, well, this is unique about this horse. Just the other day, yesterday, we had a horse lay down in session and take a nap. And this was not a sick horse. This was not a hurt horse. He just was very chill and decided to take a nap. And I've never seen that in my sessions before. And it showed the group that this horse was very comfortable with the people, because a horse on the ground in the wild is an unsafe, vulnerable horse. And that was a very unique situation that I was able to say, I've made this observation, this horse has done this is unique. And the group decided it was because they were relaxed, they were chill, and they were able to self-reflect on how actually they felt. And they chose to have a chill group for the rest of the group. And we did things that were relaxing, slow, quiet. They did self-care with themselves. They did care for the horses. And that uniqueness gave them an opportunity to discuss how they wanted their session. Discrepancies usually come from the people, and this is where the mental health specialist would come in. An example of discrepancy would be there's a person and they're petting the horse, and the horse is right there, and they're just petting on them, and they say something like, I don't like animals. I don't like horses. Never been an animal person. And we can see that their behavior and their physical body is not congruent with what they're saying out of the mouth. So all I can do is point out what I see physically with my eyes, and I can say, oh, it's interesting that this horse is here, and I see that your fingernails are on its fur, and I wouldn't even use the word pet because that's not clean. I can only point out what I see physically, and I'll say, what's going on with this horse? Now, I wouldn't bring it to the person's attention. I try to focus on the horse, and that leads them not to be as defensive, and they can say, oh, well, I guess I'm okay with this horse. I guess I do like this horse, and we're buddies. This is a real example that I'm using actually from a session. That's an example of a discrepancy that you could point out. And then my favorite, the apostrophe S's. This is all of our stuff that we bring as a team. Things that might trigger myself if I see something happen, and it might be a tad on the aggressive side, I have to decide as the ES, is this safe? Is this my personal stuff? Is it important that this behavior gets worked through, or do I need to intervene? And that's when a good relationship between the equine specialist and the mental health specialist is super important, that I'm to the place where I can make just eye contact with the mental health specialist and know that this is my apostrophe S's and they know what I'm talking about. So, and I like that it's important part of the model and it's not ignored, because I mean, we're people too. So this guy, it says here, the horses are equal partners. Like I said, the team is the mental health specialist, equine specialist, and all the horses. And they are left unencumbered to allow them to interact freely with the client. I know this is a picture of a horse with a halter on. That was just for the picture purposes, but we like them to be free. Sometimes we will use halter work and it changes the behavior, and sometimes we have to do work where the clients want to feel connected, and or we need to do self-care and this horse really needs something we have to do, and we will employ a halter. But it is important that the horses are able to react as if they would in a herd free. Why horses? So horses are prey animal. They pretty much think most things are going to kill them. We joke in the horse world saying horses are afraid of two things, things that move and things that don't move. And it's true. We've domesticated horses for hundreds of years, but we've not domesticated that flight, fight response out of them. And it's super important that they're able to decide on that during session. So we do keep them free. And that those prey animal instincts makes them super emotionally intelligent. They will decide whether or not you're a safe person and whether or not they feel safe. And when they do make that decision and choose and group to trust, it's huge. It's super impactful. We do a lot of trust work and a lot of relationship building at Round Pen Ranch. It seems to be something that comes up a lot. And I'll say, hey, what did it take to move that horse from here to here without a halter? I say, well, it took time, patience, and I had to build its trust, which is something that in recovery, they're wanting to work on themselves, and they're able to do it in one session with the horses. And again, they mirror behavior. So if you go in there and you are not quite clear with what you're trying to say to them, they'll give a vague response because you're giving a vague question or answer. They are always monitoring their environment and the health of the herd. And when the people move into their arena, into the space that I use, they become part of the herd. You can even have a human immediately become the lead. Actually, yesterday that happened where the human did some activities with the horses and became the lead of the entire herd, including the humans. And so it's important for horses' survival that they're able to tell who the leader is, and they will check in and constantly monitor, are you okay? Are you okay? And this is why they're perfect for this kind of therapy, because they are honest. They're transparent with their intent. If they intend to come over to you and do something, they're honest about it. They don't have to lie. They can't. And they are super transparent about reacting to human intent. Even if you try to lie to a horse, they just know. You can put a halter behind your back, and I assure you they know it's there, because they have to judge whether or not they're going to be okay. Which leads us to dealing with, how do we approach people? Are we similar when we approach this horse as we are out in society with, do we need to brush on some people skills? And I'm able to say, well, which horse are you most like? Which reaction are you more like? I have a horse that has a bigger bubble than another horse, and I have a shy horse, and they're able to say, well, I'm more like this horse. And because of their special nature and the way they're designed, they have such an ability to teach vulnerability. If a horse is hurt, not feeling well, they're going to feel vulnerable. But even in a healthy horse, if you go and you decide you want to pick up its leg because we need to treat its feet and we need to clean out its hooves, a three-legged horse in the wild is a dead horse. So them allowing you to pick up their leg and be super vulnerable, and that's trust building, and the people who come to session are able to see that right away. That horse that laid down and took a nap, that was a huge sign of vulnerability. And it was very impactful. So this is my ranch. Here's actual pictures of Round Pen Ranch. Another picture with halter, not sure why. Oh, so sometimes I will do an activity where they need to catch the horse and bring it to the round pen. And the round pen is where we do a ton of relationship building, exercise. It's good for them mentally, physically. And this is my motto. I hope to provide a safe place to experience value, gain a vision for the future, and build the courage to walk it out. And I just want to show you that round pen. So let's talk about the team members. This is Zach. Now, one thing that I do when people come in is I tell them, I do not tell you the horse's name, their age, or their sex. And that is important because there's a lot of feelings associated with names. If I told you that this horse was named Skull Crusher, you might not want to hang out with him. If I told you his name was Sweetums, you might want to go near him. And so I tell them as a group, please name the horse and tell me as a group what you've named the horse. And these names are just this week. El Capitan, Boss Man, Rockstar, Princess. They believe this horse, they're usually use the name based on their emotions and what they're feeling. And they point out things like, well, this horse it's in charge, but it's shy, it's a push button horse, it's stubborn, peaceful, friendly. One group can come up with all these feelings about this horse, and then we're able to say, well, what does stubborn look like? What does friendly look like? We don't live in this horse's head. Tell me what it looks like. And then usually what happens is they project, and it goes into, well, this is what people I feel like do, and this is what peaceful looks like to me. And usually they're spot on. This does happen to be my lead horse. It usually is the boss, and they're able to see that. And we work with those feelings. All right, so let me show you a couple more. This little guy on the podium is Riley, but often called Smalls, Grandpa, Eeyore, Grumpy, Donkey. This one has been called Donkey more times than I can even begin to tell you. He's also called Napoleon a lot, Tina Turner. Things that they notice about him, he's grumpy, he has trust issues. Talk about projection. They feel sorry for him. They believe he has an eating disorder, that he's hangry, that he's left out. What's funny about this is they're noticing things. He does have an eating disorder. He has problems with diet and has to be monitored regularly. He likes to eat dirt, and we have to deal with that on a regular basis. And when participants come in and they're feeling these feelings about this horse, they're able to connect at a deeper level with this animal, saying, well, I understand not being able to stop. This horse cannot stop to his detriment. And they're able to connect with that understanding. And my other guy, so I have 3 completely different horses with lots of different personalities. On the right here is Leo. His actual name is Napoleon, but they always call the little guy Napoleon. And he's been called Bougie, Bon Jovi, Stretch. He's the extrovert. He wants to play. He wants to be friends. He is called Mouthy, Bitertons. So the story earlier about the horse that likes to interact with teeth, he's the one. And a participant can go from the beginning saying, this horse hates me, to this horse actually really likes me because he wants to interact and be with me. This is a horse that'll come up immediately and decide to be a part of the group. I also have dogs on the farm. Who doesn't want to have dogs on the farm as well? I'd say, who knew dogs and chickens would provide therapy? So I actually started with canine therapy and doing comfort care in hospitals with dogs. So I knew, but I was actually shocked about how integral they became a part of group, both the dogs and my chickens. to the point where I expanded my area of where therapy actually happens. I'm going to tell a little story about that. So this is Voldemort. I use him as an example to tell why we don't tell names on a group. So don't tell names because Voldemort has a lot of feelings associated with him. But he has become so impactful on the farm because you have to establish trust with this guy. He's just being a rooster. He wants to control his area and protect the whole place that he thinks is his. And more often than not, I've had participants say, I have a goal. And we ask them, what is your goal? I want to pick up the chicken. I need to overcome this fear. And once you pick him up, he's actually quite kind and gentle. And I had a woman who decided that was her goal. So she went on the other side of the fence in the backyard with the dogs and picked up the rooster and sat with them on the side of the fence. And I had a hard time with that because from my training, I really wanted her to be in with the horses and with the group. And I struggled. That was my apostrophe S. But this guy and her sat for, a good portion of the session. And afterwards, when we were talking to all the participants and we asked, what did you get out of this? What was valuable for you? This woman said it was the first time in her adult life that she had felt at peace without the use of drugs. It was so powerful. Who would have thought from a chicken? And this is Riley, my king of the side eye there. Good example of a session where you just a nightmare. You don't want this to happen. But again, apostrophe S is this little guy decided to colic in the middle of a session. Again, he eats a lot of dirt, and so it was a typical sand colic. And we decided as a team that we were going to go ahead and draw it to the attention. Some of the participants already noticed, like, does he feel good? And I'm like, he really doesn't. Would you guys like to help with the care of this horse? And for somebody in recovery of addiction, caring for somebody else isn't always something that they have practiced. And this is a very safe, non-judgmental thing to be able to do. This little horse needs a lot of help. He's done some stuff, and because of his eating habits, now he doesn't feel well. And we were able to get some medication in him, get some oil in him. I had participants, they had to separate him from the herd, which was quite an activity in and of itself. And I had one guy who just kind of sat down with this horse and said, it's going to be okay. I understand what it's like to not be able to stop. And he took on the care of this horse throughout the session to the point where he ended up walking with him, which was important to get his stomach and bowel moving after we had treated him. And in the middle of the session, the horse decides through that walk that he would have a blowout, and everybody cheered, and which is not what you picture a group to be looking like. But when that man was able to come back the next week, this horse approached him even verbally, and you could tell the connection was something beyond what I could have created in a perfect scenario. So sometimes we do have to step out of the gate. Sometimes horses even get loose. I have gates all over, and even though I say, please watch where you are compared to the horses, and they will gate crash. The grass is literally greener on the other side of these fences, and they love to eat it. So sometimes they get loose, and it takes the entire group working together to get through this. And it's a good example of what it takes in group to be successful, and some tools that they need. When we give a directive, it's usually very vague. We'll say, build an obstacle and get a horse through it. And I have all this crazy stuff in the corner that they're able to build things with. And I don't tell them how. When I let them decide as a group what is success look like for them. And they have to use communication skills. They have to ask for help. Sometimes they realize they are able to ask us for help, and that's not something we volunteer. But if they ask us for help, we'll say, are you asking for help? They will say, yes, I would like to know this. I would like to know how to be successful. We deal risk assessment. If we do decide to take them off of their arena area and go into another part of the property, we talk about risk assessment. What out here is not what they're used to? What could be dangerous? And the risk assessment is super powerful for people who might be actually leaving recovery in that week or leaving the facility and moving on. And they learn support. They also learn how to change their expectations. If they had a goal, they might have to bring it back a little bit, and that's okay. So let's move on. So benefits of equine assisted learning. Again, we talked about the introspection leads to healing and growth. If you're able to realize something about yourself and take it with you into your journey, even if I see you just for 1 week, it's something to think about. Teamwork, they always talk about teamwork, having a support system. They say, man, this is just like recovery. I learned how to communicate better. I have people that say, I just came to watch, and now I wasn't even going to be involved. And almost every time they are sucked into maybe they're not so willing in other treatments. The attention skills are important when you're working with horses. You need to know where your body's at, what you're doing with yourself. And that leads to self-awareness and self-care. Like, hey guys, it's 98 out here. What do you need to do for yourself? How can you self-care right now? And almost always they leave feeling so much better, less stressed, less lonely. They go home with a nugget of like, man, I really learned some leadership skills, and caring for someone was a big deal. How to have a successful session, you have to define success. Almost every time, it doesn't turn out the way you think. It doesn't turn out the way the group thinks. If they build a jump and they can't get the horse over it, were they successful getting the horse near it? Were they successful doing baby steps? Are baby steps successful? Is that important? And that's a huge concept that comes up a lot. What is success? We have to expect the unexpected, go with the flow. Every time I have a group out, it is never the same. It's never the same because the people are different. The herd has now changed. And I have to look to the herd dynamic. Is this a healthy group? As far as, are they working together? Are they communicating together? How do the horses feel about this? I have to focus on those spuds, those discrepancies, those patterns, and everything happens outside the box. I can have, well, here, I'll show you the next slide. I can have a plan, but I have to plan on not using it. I always think every morning, I have an arsenal of little activities that I could do with the group. And sometimes a group comes in and says, we feel so good in this space and we're so at peace. We don't need an activity. And I let that up to them. I say, just so you know, I have thoughts, but it's up to you. This is your group. And not only do I ask the participants, we ask the horses. The horses are chill and they're having a great time, and the people are super relaxed. And that's what they wanted to get out of that group. Then that's what we go with. And can be the opposite too. I have a group comes in and there's high energy. It's a movement day and we deal with jumps and movement and obstacles and round penning work. And it can change even throughout the 2 hours that they're with me. I could go from super energy and then calm, care, and that's works as well. So we talk about overcoming obstacles. Literally and figuratively, our goal is to create metaphors for the group. They are coming in and they don't know what to expect. And that's super exciting for us because we can pull them out, pull the metaphors out as the people say them. We have situations where we make an alley and we call it Temptation Alley. And we say, build an alley and put the horses through it. And that could take the whole session because it's hard to get horses through something that they've made without halters, without ropes, and they have to work together. Sometimes group work isn't always smooth and one person decides they want to do it this way, and that's the dynamic you use and that's what you work through. And we're able to take that metaphor and say, well, here's a Temptation Alley, and I'll literally put feed in the middle of the alley and tell the participants, don't let the horses put their nose in the bucket. And they have to work together as a group to keep this horse out of its own temptation. And some of that metaphor is pretty, like I set that up, but we really hope that the participants come up with their own metaphors. I will say, I want you to build a obstacle and name it. And we'll have group members come out and say, well, this is my alcoholism. This is my obstacle. And then we'll have group members that I say, make an obstacle, name it, and they'll be like, this is Bob. And they missed the metaphor there, but we're able to draw it out later on in the group and say, well, what obstacles are you dealing with right now? And what does it take to deal with that obstacle? Did you have to break it down? Do you need to do baby steps? And we're able to work through that. So one of the hardest things for me personally to do and in this work is holding space. And I say acres and acres of space. I have to remind myself, this is not my place, by the way. I wish it was. It's beautiful. This is just a stock photo. But holding space is when participants are just about to get that horse over the jump. They've built it. They've put all this work into it. They're communicating great, and they are just not able to get that horse over. And I know what it would take because he's my horse, and I know they're just so close. And I really want to step in and give them a hint or just do this. And because I want the horse to go over as much as they do. And I can't do that when we talk about that clean language. And I have to take out my feelings about this, because in that frustration time is when most of the therapy and the growth happens. They realize, wow, in my frustration, I learned I really need to be able to take a breath. I need to not give up. I had one guy the other day who it was halter work. We put the halter on the horse, grabbed the rope, he pulled, and this horse would not go. And he just waited and waited. And all the group members said, man, this has become a battle of the wills. And they waited, and it took quite some time, and I wanted to help, and I knew it wasn't right. And afterwards, he ended up getting the horse to move, and everybody clapped and cheered. And in the end, afterwards, when he discussed, he said, in that moment, I knew I could not give up. I had to not quit, and I needed to persist. And we were able to talk about persistence in recovery and persistence in their journey. And if I had gone in and saved him, he wouldn't have been able to take that with him into his recovery journey as he left my ranch. So that's my biggest goal every time, is to hold some space. And so that is my presentation. And now I will hold for questions. Okay, so at this point, we don't have any questions, but if you have something specific that you're curious about or want to know more about equine assisted learning, you are welcome to email me. My email is roundpenranch, that's PEN ranch, @gmail.com. So I believe I'm on Facebook too, and reach out, and hopefully I even offer a demo or answer any questions you may have. But thank you for taking the time and learning about equine assisted therapies.